Welcome everyone to episode of Bigfoot Learning podcast, where instead of focusing on the fictional character of Bigfoot, we are focusing on learning through self-reflections. And today we have guest Mr. Brandon Culpepper. Thank you for joining today. And the reason I have you joining us today is Culpepper is one of the personal Bigfoots in my life, and one of those. There are many different lessons and takeaways that I've been able to embody after meeting you, and one of the ones that I wanted to highlight before we get into questions more about you and your Bigfoots is that I know one of the things I take away is, making different connections with people and making the most of different opportunities. And I know in certain situations, just through working and knowing with you for the different sports camps with when there was We Coach organization that was there, and then even like with the 500 stars, I would kind of notice during it that I'd have a little voice in my head for when I'm like, okay, here's a person I could potentially talk to, make connections, and hopefully down the line maybe be able to learn from them. And then also maybe they have a project going on and be able to help with, and different matters like that. I would have you a little bit in my mind of, hey, go up and talk to them, make those connections. And so wanted to check with you, is that something that you've just been able to do naturally through your life, or have you kind of learned that in various ways well, throughout your own life?
First off, thanks for allowing me to be a part of the Bigfoot. It's a pleasure working with you and really watching you grow and blossom. And when talking about the ability to be able to step out of your comfort zone, I think that's something that we all practice on. That's something that I work on each and every day. It's not, I think that, many people have the perception that it's just, for some people, it just comes naturally, and I don't think it's that it comes naturally. I think it's the willingness to be vulnerable and be comfortable being vulnerable isn't easy for anyone. So, I've definitely grown with my ability to be able to put myself in uncomfortable situations, knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But that's not easy for anyone. I think that, technically it probably started from my mother and my father introducing me and keeping me involved in a lot of different programs, which, I was, alone. And I was, somewhat vulnerable. And then, figuring out how to navigate through that, I think just comes from, my mother never being afraid to ask questions. And so that's where I am. But I'm just as nervous as anyone else when it comes to, that introduction, when it comes to, having individuals depending on you and making sure that you don't drop the ball.
Well, that's rather comforting to know, because at least you mentioned about, practicing with that, and at least from an outsider's perspective, you do a really good job with that, of having it looked at least you can't see those nerves, even though now it sounds that, when you still encounter those situations, still sort of have those nerves in the background, but kind of just working up to, use that as, working to overcome that and just power through pretty much. So
being motivated, if you want something, you're going to be willing to put yourself out there. It's just how bad do you want it? And again, it's uncomfortable, but that's what it takes. You know, in order to be successful, you have to push yourself. Creating relationships is no different.
Well, that's cool to hear. I know I've been I try my best to keep putting myself in those different opportunities and practice on that, like you kind of mentioned. So, uh, with that, then I'll definitely, that's something I'll keep in mind, knowing that, you know, person who makes it look fairly easy is still working on it themselves. So, um, um, so that definitely keeps things in perspective. I'll put it that way. All right. Well, cool. Well, with that, then we can get into first core question for the podcast is, who is an example of a personal Bigfoot in your life where they came into life, left a good impression, and then you kind of are using the lessons that they gave, either if those were negative or positive lessons in your life today, and you can do one or two. I won't necessarily limit you to one if you want. So
No worries, no worries. You know, you know, there, and I can generalize it too because you know, I was in a lot of programs that, you know, allow access to many, you know, young professionals, you know, in different industries from different backgrounds, and so, you know, I would say that that program was really more of a Bigfoot for me, and that was the Youth Leadership Academy as a young man. So you're talking about, you know, being 12, 13 years old, you know, going to Marquette University every day in the summer, you know, being there on the weekends during the school year with, you know, 200 some odd kids. But the professionals that they brought in to speak to us, you know, they were the Bigfoots because they, you know, provided examples of individuals that I had never met before. So that program was a Bigfoot, you know, because it was designed to fill the gap for young African American males in particular, and, you know, presenting, you know, pathways to success, whether that be, you know, an entrepreneur, owning your own business, whether that be education. The founder of that organization has since passed, but you know, I would also say that he was a Bigfoot because, you know, we all have dreams and aspirations of what we want to accomplish, and, you know, adults, you know, at least for me as a child, you know, looking at an adult and them having the things that, you know, I like, you know, whether it be cars or clothes or, you know, accessible cash or traveling and things of that nature. So, you know, having that exposure to all those men and women, you know, were big steps for me because they, you know, again, presented a perspective that wasn't necessarily in my household. You know, I got a chance to speak with and meet with a lot of young guys who, you know, were in college or about to graduate from college, and I know that had an impression in my life. You know, a greater. You know, I mean, as a young man, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I started my own law service, so, you know, I would say that. For the other person, I would say it'd be my mother. Simply because of her effort and, you know, willingness to do what was necessary to support the family, and she, you know, she also ran for a couple positions in her union at A.O. Smith. So seeing her do those things, and as we, you know, work on the property that I grew up in, and I'm finding all of these, you know, memorabilia, if you will, from when she was running, like pins that said Culpepper, and posters and things of that nature that she had. You know, she didn't know at the time, but she was doing things, you know, from a marketing and a PR perspective that people go to school for, you know, but those things came very naturally to her. And again, willingness to put herself out there, be uncomfortable. You're in a workplace with, I would say probably 90% male dominant, 10% women worked at A.L. Smith. I would say I could probably guarantee that, from when she worked there. So, that she impressed me each and every day, because there was never an excuse when it came to working. It was only when, where, how, and why, and actually doing it. So I would say the Youth Leadership Academy as a child, as well as my mother, are probably some of the biggest Bigfoot impressions that I had as a child.
Very good. Well, especially with your mother, it sounds like with her hard work ethic and, family focus, that were some of the key lessons. And with the Youth Academy being able to, expose you to different opportunities and people who are in various professional roles and such. And since for if you had to choose like one main takeaway, since it sounds like with the Youth Academy, sounds like they left a lot of impressions on your mind, what would be one lesson that kind of sticks out the most to you?
I think, we would have all these different creeds and mantras that we would use. And one in particular is one that we use for Pep Nation. As you once were, we are now. As you are now, we someday will be. So I was repeating that as a child, And so I would say that probably had the biggest impression on me, because it's saying like, when I look at an adult, when I look at things that they've accomplished, a human being, someone with 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, lips, etc., just like it put it in perspective that there's nothing that I can't do that this person has did. They were once a child, they bleed just like I do, and we all have, naturally, some of us are smarter, in other ways than others. But what stays consistent is, the ability to work and have work ethic, and never give up. So I would say that was the biggest impression is, as you once were, we are now. Just put in perspective for me as a young man that, those who I admired were just like me as a child, and then going to try to understand furthermore is, as you are now, we someday will be, is okay, what do I have to do to be where you are, to follow in your footsteps, to be a reflection of you as an adult. And yeah, I'll never forget that. And that's why we, a lot of our practices in Pep Nation mirror what I learned as a child.
Very true. Yeah, that's definitely a very powerful mantra, and you know and something that you've been able to carry over with you, is very good to see with working with the youth participants in the local Milwaukee area, and then even anybody you're pretty much working with. And so um, that I know with work using that for different sites, whether it's a school or park for Pep Nation side of things, that being able to then carry over that to them, to kind of be able to look forward at the youth development mentors that are out there as coaches, trying to help them out for uh, there's the flag rugby, but then what's at large with the life skills that they can learn through athletics. So very cool. It's great hearing kind of the past and the history behind that mantra. So thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
All right. Well, now kind of transitioning from personal Bigfoots from your life, what are some Bigfoots that you've had that are more farther away from you in a way that they could be like a celebrity or someone maybe famous or maybe like a high profile that you have may not have had the opportunity to learn from in person per se, but maybe you learn more from what they wrote and what they kind of have as videos and stuff a little bit farther away that you still took to heart?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that question for a while, and there are many examples of, this not so much fictional, but these individuals that seem, somewhat far-fetched or seem far removed. Naturally growing up as a child, it was, that was the Michael Jordan of the world, for us, most of the little kids and myself, everyone wants to be like Mike. And, for me, like, from business, I've always admired and did my best to follow in the footsteps of those who come before me. So, whether that be, Bob Johnson, learning and reading about these individuals who, have been very successful, you know, and surprisingly, now that I think about it, many of these guys I actually did get a chance to meet. So even though they were kind of far-fetched as a child, I got a chance to spend time and really interact with them, as a young man, and so that's cool. Uh, but I could not put one like, main celebrity. I think that I could, or someone that's recognized, in the media, whether from the past or present. And I'm like, wow, that's the Bigfoot that the footprint that I want to feel. But I think that, many of the individuals that, I've seen and admired in my past, it may not be um, everything about them, but there may be certain components of their life that I really appreciate. There was, although it was, somewhat fictional, when I would watch, the Cosby Show as a kid, I really admire seeing that family atmosphere, seeing these two successful, you know, parents raise, these young people and see them off to college. That was, really an inspiration to me, whether it be like, Martin Luther King and Marcus Garvey and some of these, you know, trailblazers when it came to, the rights and the wealth and understanding of, the Black civilization and where we come from and our path to our future. All those Malcolm X, all those individuals, they spoke so profound and they saw things that we necessarily don't see in our lives. So I think, thank you. I am very, very thankful to have, I've had those experiences, still continue to seek, that knowledge and understanding. Thank you. Of that knowledge and understanding of, individuals that I may not be able to see every day, but they're all, I think each and every day, thank you, each and every day I am encouraged and admired, many businessmen and women who, have been trailblazers and really just, set the world on fire. I mean, I even look at, the guy, Mike Zuckerberg, and how he started something from nothing. And, now this guy, really, he and his company controls, social media from I mean, they really do. They're influencing the world. So, those things I admire about him. I don't know much about his personal life, but I think that, the fact that he was able to get out and get it done, I admire the most.
Well, it sounds that you try to just kind of take not general lessons, but kind of just, the knowledge that you kind of just try to seek from others isn't necessarily confined to one specific area. And so anywhere you can kind of learn and gain more understanding seems to be what you tend to do.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be a good listener. I try to be aware of my surroundings and what's going on in where I live and my environment. Um, naturally, I don't always get it right, but I am always looking. Yeah, I mean, again, it's back to that as you once where we are now. If there's something that I admire and I like about a person, I'm gonna say, how do they get there and how can I do it?
Mm-hmm.
What is feasible? What's obtainable? What can I do to achieve the same practices that these individuals did, so I can have a similar or parallel outcome?
Kind of a little bit of never stop learning mindset, I'm hearing.
Yeah, it is a nonstop. It's nonstop. And then seeking it. Seeking. I mean, I'm working on a project now, just not to get too far off, but I'm like, okay, how can I do this project? I don't know it all, but then just start Googling and looking for, examples that I can follow. And, that's transparent all over the world. If you talk about biblical, you say you're trying to get to, you're Christian, you're trying to get to God, you follow the footsteps of Jesus Christ, whatever it is, that everyone's talking about following the footsteps of others. So I think that, we just have to, no matter what it is, again, just be willing to put it out there. And if you want it, and figure out how to do it.
It's definitely a good thing to keep in mind, not only to, soak in the different learning opportunities, but, seek them out. So very good.
Yeah.
Well, you ended up covering two of the final questions with learning from Bigfoots from afar and then the fictional Bigfoots as well. And so I wanted to check in if there been any recent books or it could be even like a video or something that really stuck out to you in your mind of a recent lesson or knowledge that you kind of learned about?
I mean, I always, when I think about, so I'm reading the book right now. I've read it, a few times. It's called The World's Greatest Salesman. It just talks about these different stories and parables from, ancient times of how people were, able to not manipulate in a negative way, but to gain, knowledge and awareness and respect of others, that they were willing to follow and purchase and do the things that this greatest salesman in the world would present. There's also naturally, like I talk about the Bible, there are stories, in all of these ancient writings, which apply to our daily lives, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, all of these different scriptures, from the past. They are, testimonies and examples of what has taken place, and nothing, in my perspective, is new. It's all just kind of evolving with, different tentacles and all this kind of stuff. It's all the same. So we can learn at an early age to follow those individuals. Thank you. And I think we'll all be successful. So one of my favorite movies, which is also one of my partner's good movies, is The Matrix. I always watch The Matrix and look at how, Neo's understanding of himself, it was transformational for, I mean, obviously, because, he transformed into being the one, but it was transformational. But the biggest thing was him believing himself, and without the belief in self, then, nothing else could be achieved. So I think that's probably one of my favorite movies that I own and look at often, and remind myself that as Marcus Garvey said as well back in the 1920s, once man or woman comes to full realization of him or herself, of what she can accomplish, then there's nothing that's impossible. Um, so yeah, those are some of the speakers and books and movies that I frequent just to replenish myself.
Oh, cool. I haven't heard of that book before, so I'll keep that in mind and try to check that out a little bit. But um, I have seen The Matrix, and yeah, that definitely gets your mind thinking a lot. At least that's how I felt after watching it the most recent time.
For
So I
sure.
feel that.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I bought it. Here's another movie I will say. When Blockbuster was open, I went to Blockbuster and I said, "Hey, I want this movie, and I'm not bringing it back. So how much is it gonna cost?" And it's Rudy, the movie Rudy.
Mm.
Hands down, one of my favorite movies in the world. With just his willingness to never give up. I mean, I watch it and it brings me to tears even today. So, again, I'll encourage people. Rudy, Matrix, and The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Very good. Ooh, yeah, another great movie right there with Rudy. I know that one
Yes, it
hits
is.
hard for the ending and
Yep.
like many other sports movies, but especially that one with, like you said, the whole never giving up mentality and just trying to keep working towards that dream.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, it's brilliant. No, but this is. I think this is a great way to, for people to hear. It's like what we're doing. People to hear from different perspectives of how they achieve success, how they make it through each and every day. Because it's not easy. Life is not easy, but if you have examples to follow and you believe, then you too can do it.
Exactly. Well, with that, that's the last question I really had for this, but you kind of mentioned in there about uh Pep Nation, some of the work. So I know I have a background knowledge of the different projects that you're doing, but like to wrap up this interview with just in your words some of the projects that you're working on and how people can try to look those up or keep in touch with the different projects that they can kind of see.
Sure. Well, I mean, first with Pep Nation, actually, we're doing virtual. We are a youth service organization, but now we're pushing to create some virtual impact. Monica's doing a great job of supporting us there. So you can find us at pep.tv.inc on Facebook, as well as PeppTV on Instagram, and you'll be able to see our efforts. We're working with a couple of schools here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as well as some teachers in Newark, New Jersey, to really not perfect, but promote and highlight the best practices when it comes to virtual engagement with youth and young adults. So those are really good. So, please check us out. You can also visit us at pepnation.org. And I have some other things going, but I'll definitely just continue to promote Pep Nation to the best of my ability. And we would love to get interviews like this from those who are watching. If you're interested, we're showing interviews such as this with schools, throughout the Milwaukee city limits. So we'd love to share that as well. I'm sorry, Milwaukee County, not Milwaukee city limits.
Very good. I know I'm enjoying helping out with those projects and am very grateful to still be able to help out with all the work that you're able to do with giving back to the community at large and to be able to be be a positive role model like you and many others out there. So thank
Yeah.
you again for joining. And again, feel free to check out any of those projects on with PeppTV and Pep Nation, and hope you keep going throughout your day and just find those different life lessons and reflect and connect and make those different learning opportunities through there.
Great. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Monica.
Thank you. Appreciate it.